I'm going to show you how to knit the I've Got Sunshine Shawl.
Right, let's get started. We've got the pattern here and all of your yarns, and we are going to start with the instructions right over here. You've got the materials, you have found a knitting needle, and if you don't understand any of the abbreviations, we're going to go through them very slowly together. Gauge is not essential for this project because it doesn't have a fit. However, if you wanted to turn out your finished project to turn out the size of our sample, then I recommend that you check your gauge on the recommended knitting needle. If you have more stitches and more rows in 10 centimeters, you need a smaller knitting needle. If you have fewer stitches and fewer rows in 10 centimeters, try a bigger knitting needle. The lipstick edge, the long edge, is the cast on edge, and that's why you need 228 stitches, and you're going to work the pattern a solid color and then alternating rows of the multicolor, that's Cape Carnival, and the solid color before you then knit a solid block of Cape Carnival and introduce the next color. And as I said, this is the long edge, hence the 228 stitches. And if you look at the information in the pattern, you can see the color pattern repeat is described here, and you start with a cast on of 228 stitches. We are going to look at how to do the cast on firstly, and then how to knit this very straightforward repeat here. You can see in row 1, it's a slip 1, knit to the last stitch, knit 1 through the back of the loop. And on row 2, which is going to be your second row starting on this side, you slip 1 and then knit 2 together. So as you knit 2 together all the way along the shawl, it's going to get smaller and smaller to form the triangle. So let's go ahead and look at the cast on. Okay, so you need to cast on 228 stitches in lipstick. You can use any cast on method you prefer. I use a long tail cast on as my standard with the thumb method. And how I do that is as follows. Start with a simple slip knot. And to do the slip knot, it's a little different from the first stitch. I wrap the yarn around my thumb. I come from the bottom through so that it twists, and then knit the stitch. I'm right-handed, so I have the needle in my right hand. I also knit English style, not continental, and I keep the working yarn also in my right hand. The tail yarn is in my left hand and my thumb is loose. So I'm going to move my thumb from the back to the front and pick up the yarn, insert my needle from the front to the back, wrap the working yarn and slip the stitch on. Let's do that again. I'm holding the yarn, my thumb from the back to the front, insert the needle from the front to the back, wrap the working yarn and slip the stitch on. And there you can see the stitches in my cast on beginning to form. So I'm going to cast on a few more stitches. I won't cast on the full 228 for this demonstration, but if I just cast on a few more, I'll be able to show you how to knit each row. So pretend we've got 228 stitches and we're working the full row, and let's go back to the pattern and the 2-row repeat of the basic pattern. So the first row says slip 1, knit to the last stitch, knit 1 TBL. If you aren't sure what any of the abbreviations mean, they're explained over here. So the slip is slip the next stitch as if to knit. So insert your needle as if you were going to knit the stitch and simply slip it off. I often hold this little tail yarn between the fingers of my left hand to keep it out the way. Now you're going to work across the row, and if your knitting is a bit rusty, my granny used to say you go in, round, through, off, in, round, through, off, in, round, through, off, in, round, through, and off. And I've worked to the last stitch, which I'm going to knit TBL, which means through the back loop. So there's the back loop of the stitch. Normally I would go into the front loop, but I'm going to go into the back loop and I'm going to knit it as normal. So there you have your first row worked. I'm going to turn my work and show you the second row. Again, we start with a slip one as if to knit. So slip one stitch, and for the second stitch it's a knit two together, and that simply means knit the next two stitches together. So I'll insert my needle through both of the next two stitches, through and off, and I've now turned those two stitches into one stitch. Then I'm going to knit to the last stitch. Again, very straightforward, in, round, through and off. And at the last stitch, I'm going to knit through the back loop. And there you have it. So you're going to start with 10 rows in lipstick like that, and then introduce the main color, which is Cape Carnival, for stripes. So let's pretend I've knit my 10 rows and I'm ready to start the Cape Carnival. And for this, I highly recommend weaving in your ends as you go. It's really easy to do, and I'm going to show you that now. So I put the tail in my left hand and hold it against the needle. And then I'm going to follow the pattern. Slip the first stitch, let go of the lipstick as the working yarn, and pick up the Cape Carnival. And I'm going to knit the first stitch as normal. Once I get to the second stitch, I'm going to hold on to the lipstick in my left hand now to keep it out the way, and I'm going to wrap my tail in as I go. Just tuck the tail away. So twist it over the working yarn and knit your stitch. Insert your needle, take the tail and twist it over the working yarn and knit the stitch. Insert your needle, take the tail, twist it over this working yarn, and do that for 5 or 6 stitches. I'm now at the last stitch here, and I'm going to knit it through the back of the loop. So my tail is now tucked away, and you can see that it very neatly twists into the knitting over there. And actually at that point, if you want it out the way, go ahead and snip it off. Repeat row 2 of the basic pattern, slip the first stitch, knit 2 together, knit to the last stitch. This one's still in lipstick because we slipped it the last time. Knit it through the back of the loop and then pull the lipstick tight. So you've knit 2 rows in the main color, and now you're going back to lipstick. Make sure you've got the long end of the working yarn, hold the Cape Carnival out of the way, and carry on going. Slip the first stitch, knit to the end of the row, and work your way back, 1 through the back of the loop. If I turn, I'm going to slip the first stitch, knit 2 together, and carry on knitting back, knit 1 through the back of the loop. And you can see already how my little triangle is starting to form here, and that will be the pointy end of your shawl. And with each row, I simply put the yarn I've just finished with to the back and pick up the next yarn to knit. As easy as that.
And that pretty much covers it. There's not a lot more that I can show you. It's a simple pattern for each row, and just keep following it. Change colors in the right order to make your stripes, and weave in the ends as you go, or leave them to the end. It's entirely up to you and what you're most comfortable with. And most importantly, enjoy it. This is supposed to be fun. Thank you for knitting with us. Please tag us on Instagram and Facebook, post your pictures on Ravelry, and let us know how it's going. Then start planning your next knit.